to the morning show. Welcome back in the seat, sir.
Yes, good to be here. Looking forward to this morning's show, and glad that you could join us.
Last week we had the Winders in here, and it was really hard because I'm only used to like looking at one person for the camera, so like
throw you off looking at two.
Yes.
Yeah, I think too. Like we've done, how many weeks is this now? Like 22. 22 weeks of this. We have developed like the ability to know when to talk and not to talk, right?
But that's only on camera for this show. When I go home, I've not.
No, I mean like together as like co-hosts.
Sure.
Like anytime it's somebody different, it feels like it's like an adjustment.
Yeah, it's
like
when
to
a first
talk
date
and
all
when
over
not to.
again.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we got a great show today. We're going to talk about discipling kids, basically defending your faith from the dinner table, apologetics for the whole family, which I think will be a great conversation.
I'm excited about that, yeah.
And we got Dr. Dan DeWitt from Cedarville University is going to be on, and we're looking forward to talking to him. He's written, I believe he's got his third children's book coming out in October. So he's really.
We should ask him like which is harder to do, like to
go,
write the adult content of like a big, deep, heady theological one, or the kids content, right? Like which one?
Right.
I imagine it's a whole different spectrum.
Yeah, it's got to be a different way that you come at it.
Yeah.
But it's great though because there's not really a ton of children's books that are good, solid, like biblically
correct.
That are really giving like a strong biblical, teaching.
Which is interesting because it's the kids who are in that like 5 to 7 range that are asking all of these big worldview questions like, why is the sky blue? Why does God? I mean, like they're naturally asking those questions. You would think.
Yeah, that we would be doing a better job of dealing with those. So what kind of random thing do you have today that happened? Last week it was the lady who died but came back to life.
That was a legitimate thing to ask. No, I think, really, the only thing that we're excited in my household is that the movie theaters are finally open.
Yes.
And so I've tried unsuccessfully now twice to get popcorn for my wife. My wife, love Marcy, she is a huge popcorn fanatic, and as close as I've come during the pandemic to make her popcorn, I still haven't just reached that unattainable goal of movie theater popcorn.
Well, I mean, when you're paying $12 for a cup of popcorn, expectations are high.
Yeah,
that's the movie theater.
And I don't even think it's I think it's the butter. I think they have some kind of like liquid crack that is inside the butter.
Well, and then you've paid all that money, you're there, so you go all in with the butter and salt.
Oh,
Where at home you're like, I better
stingy.
I don't want to be,
I've got to make this stretch.
I want to be able to fit through the door, so I better not.
But it is a decent argument, the fact that the money I'm paying into this may actually make it taste better, but we shall see.
We shall see.
I will try again today. I will go for
Do they have new movies yet? Aren't they just showing old movies?
They are, except for Christopher Nolan's new movie, Tenet, will be coming out soon. And then you have like Wonder Woman and a bunch of other Wonder Woman.
So they're coming, yeah.
They're coming. Whether they actually get here, we have no idea. It's like the weather in Ohio. It might change. Give it time. So please make sure to stick around for after the interview because we will be doing our table talk on basically how to redeem the time in the car with your kids. There's many different things you can be listening to. We have done some research on some of them. We're going to highlight some of those options you have today, as well as our interview with Dr. DeWitt where we're going to ask him about his book and then some other fun random questions on our Fast Five. So, and then we've got some fun people coming up on the show. Let's see, Matt Michaelatis is coming on next week, and then we have Ronnie Martin from Substance Church in Worcester, Ohio, and host of the Happy Rant podcast. Let's see, Dr. Jason Allen, Midwestern Seminary is coming.
End of the month, we'll have Dr. Allen, president of Midwestern, will be on, our second seminary president. Rob's excited. He's trying to collect all, how many is there? 5, 7?
There's 6.
6?
There are 6.
That's close. Wrong on both directions. Make a joke about one of them not counting, but then that president won't come on, so we won't do that.
They're a friend of the show. They're not watching.
And then we have American Gospel on the 22nd. So if you haven't seen the American Gospel documentary, we're going to have the creators come on and talk about it, and that'll be really, really good. Looking forward to that.
So if you guys will have any questions for Dr. DeWitt and his books and things along those lines, or questions your kids have asked you, or questions that family friends have asked you about God or theology or Christianity that have kind of stumped you, please put those in the comment section, and we will get to those on air if you post them.
Yes, please. We'd love to have some comments, interactions there that we could ask him or try to address as we go. All right.
I think we're ready for the interview.
Let's do it.
Going live to Cedarville University through the interwebs is
He's
Dr.
at a park.
DeWitt.
He's at a park.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You're not at Cedarville. And that is not a virtual background. Like, you are legitimately holing away in the woods like Rivendell, right? Like, you are...
Yes, I am in my hobbit hole. So this is my happy place. It's where if I have several hours free, I will come here to write. And so I don't teach till 3 o'clock today, and I brought all my stuff with me. So it's an honor and a joy to join you guys this morning.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So are you giving any tests today, quizzes?
No, actually,
lectures?
I teach my C.S. Lewis class later today, and no tests, no quizzes. We're just going over the life of C.S. Lewis right now, which is a lot of fun. Speaking of hobbits, he didn't write anything about hobbits.
There was a whole subsection of our audience that was about to really get enraged, so I'm glad you corrected,
right.
sir.
Well, I will say this. He wrote multiple book reviews of Tolkien's works, and they were all extremely complimentary. And Tolkien, on the other hand, hated Lewis's children's stuff. So,
Oh, wow.
there you go.
Snap.
Yeah.
The best, I just learned how to say Tolkien. Oh, I messed it up. Yeah. I'll get it.
We just got him through Chipotle, so it's our new goal for 2020. How to say Tolkien.
Oh, very, very good.
So let's talk about your book. So you are currently writing, sir. Your most recent book is a children's book, Why God? Big Answers About God and Why We Believe in Him. So what motivated you to write this book, sir?
So several years ago, I was watching an interview of the celebrity atheist Richard Dawkins, and who's a New York Times bestselling author, an evolutionary biologist, although he's been out of academic research for a number of years and has primarily been doing popular level writing. Most of it has been, as you guys know, atheistic. So his book, The God Delusion, perhaps the most influential of all those books. But he's since then started writing for a younger audience. And I was watching an interview, and the interviewer asked him something about why are you writing for a younger readership, and he said, there's some stupid people who teach their children that God created the world. And I remember seeing that and just being a bit irritated by it. And I wasn't necessarily irritated that an atheist thought people who teach their children about God are stupid, but irritated by the fact that there aren't more Christians who are actively trying to counter those arguments and prepare children for what they're going to face in a increasingly secular world. So that's where I got the idea for doing apologetics in a way that just starts to introduce children to what are some of the classical arguments and biblical arguments Christians use against these misconceptions. As the Apostle Paul says in his letter to the church at Colossae, he prays that their faith would not be diluted by plausible arguments. Well, there's all kinds of plausible arguments that can dilute our faith. And that's where I got the idea. I thought if Richard Dawkins can do this, then it's something that I would like to take a shot at. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So, kids tend to have a lot of questions. So when do you think is the best age to start talking about apologetics with our kids, to start trying to take on these things? And how do we kind of begin that conversation?
Well, the title, Why God? At first, the publisher, B&H Kids, Broadman and Holman, kind of went back and forth on whether or not they liked the title because it sounds like a prayer of lament almost, why God? But I really fought for keeping the question why in it, just because kids ask why so often.
Sure.
And I'm also hoping there could be some later titles by the same publisher, Why Jesus, and some basic arguments for the exclusivity of the gospel. But, kids ask why all the time. And I remember I was driving here in Ohio. I was driving to a little town near here we were talking about earlier before the show, Yellow Springs, and I was bringing my daughter there, who at that time was maybe 4 or 5. And she just out of the blue said, "Dad, why did God make Satan?" And not the question I was expecting to come from my daughter, but it was also a reminder that we usually think about apologetics with kids too late. Right. And so whatever you think is the natural answer to that question, it's probably earlier than that, because kids are already going to be thinking those why questions. So I would say as soon as your children are able to learn about God, to just begin explaining, some people don't believe in God, and here's some of the reasons they don't believe in God, and here's why we do believe in God. So I think at a really young age, but you're not going to teach them the a argument from fine tuning when they're 3, but you can teach them that there are people in the world who don't believe in God, so they're not shocked by that. And as they get older, they're going to ask, well, why don't they believe in God? And we can begin to expose them to it. So in the book, Why God, it introduces some basic biblical arguments from Romans, from Psalm 19, that creation's saying something about God. And in that, we introduce the argument from design, the argument from first cause, and then also the argument from morality, are all in that little book in very kind of, embryonic form, but we're at least introducing kids to those.
So I kind of want to ask this question off the cuff. Like, how did you answer your daughter in that question?
Yeah.
Did you just slide your book over to her? Like, here you go.
Here, honey, read this.
Yeah, well, that's $9.99.
I use it as an opportunity to talk about the fact that God made beings who can make real decisions, and they're accountable for them. And so just like every person we know, including ourselves, we can make real decisions that affect our relationship with God. God created angels who can make decisions like that, and Satan was an angel like that. So he wasn't created evil, but like Adam and Eve, he chose to disobey God, and that's where Satan came from.
Did you drop the mic at that point? Like, got this in the bag?
Basically, yes.
So, that kind of leads into another question we're going to ask. Like, what are some of the other big questions you found that kids are wondering about or asking their parents?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I tried to deal with in the book, I have these 2 children in the book, Why God, brother and sister, and it's Thomas and Hope, his sister, and their mom kind of overhears them talking, and Thomas says that he had a friend at school who said he didn't believe in God, and he just doesn't really know what to do with that. So he and his sister are talking, and the mom kind of interjects herself in the conversation in a loving way. And so I hope that even in the story kind of model, this is what it could look like, just to listen carefully to what your kids are talking about. Thomas's friend at school, his name's Richard, which is a playoff of Richard Dawkins.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so I had to fit that in there. But the mom is basically explaining that, the fact that the world is here, we know that there had to be some way the world got here, and how God is the creator of everything. And in telling that bit of the story, I wanted to anticipate what would be an objection someone might have to that. And one objection would be, well, if God designed it, why are there so many bad things in the world? And so through that, I tried to anticipate what would be an objection either by Thomas or his friend Richard. And so through that, to introduce, well, this is how Christians respond to the reality of suffering and evil. And I think that that's a natural question kids have. If God is there, then why aren't all my prayers answered? Sometimes we pray for really good things that we know God surely would want to answer, like a parent who's dying of cancer or something like that. So I think that that's another big question. When we start talking about God's there, he's all powerful and he's all loving, the question we have as adults, well, why is there suffering? Children have that too. So I think most of the big questions adults have, children are going to have in different ways. So just to recognize, if you're asking that question, your child's probably already asking it as well. And if they're not now, they will at some point in the near future.
Yeah, that's good. I think, as Christian parents, a lot of times we tend to kind of have this idea that, well, my kids are in a Christian school, or they're homeschooled, or they're in church and Awana and all these programs, and so they're sort of good. And so as long as we keep them, in these places, and, we can sort of, we probably don't say this out loud, but we sort of think, well, I can sort of slack off, or I don't have to be as intentional about it.
Somebody else is holding that.
Yeah, someone else is sort of, they're getting it there, they're getting this Bible and these things in these other places. But statistically, what we're seeing is no matter what upbringing the kids have within the church, so often when they turn 18, they're at a high rate not staying in the faith. And so as we're discipling our children all the way up till 18, even beyond, what do you think are some of those big issues that we need to be preparing our kids for, so that when they do turn 18, they do get out there, they're just not immediately eaten up by the world?
Yeah, and that's so important. There's an article in the Atlantic several years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and the author was a Christian author, and he was describing how he had been spent a year interviewing atheists on college campuses, asking them to summarize their experience. And one of the most interesting observations was that all of them he interviewed, with either very few exceptions or no exceptions at all, had actually become atheists between the ages of 14 to 17, but they were active in church. And so what he discovered is this assumption that kids are becoming atheists in college is actually not entirely accurate. They're becoming atheists while they're sitting in our youth groups. They're coming out as atheists when they get to college, and they're in a different social setting, and they now feel comfortable to share, I no longer believe in God. And I think if I had to pick one thing today that I feel like a lot of times as Christian leaders, we don't do a good job in our churches or other organizations preparing people for this particular issue. And that's why we believe the Bible. I think that we do not do a good job of introducing students to why we believe the Bible is trustworthy, and not only the theological arguments for inspiration and inerrancy, but also just the history of where the English Bible came from, Bible transmission, the manuscript tradition. And so when you have someone like Bart Ehrman, professor at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, stand up and give a talk, or a college kid may see it on YouTube, he has thousands and thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of views on his videos, and he argues that the New Testament's not trustworthy. I don't think we've given him good answers. At a minimum, we should make sure that when kids hear those arguments, they think, oh, I've heard that argument before. I had a mentor, and I'll make this real quick, but I had a mentor who years ago, he's with the Lord now, but he was a philosopher, and he taught me and impressed upon me the importance of what he called the law of first mention. That whoever first mentions a idea or an argument, to some degree will hold a certain level of authority with that, because they're the one who introduced you to it. And he said what Christian leaders should do is seek to have the first mention on the best critiques of the Christian faith, so that when people are exposed to them, they think, yeah, I heard my youth pastor teach on that, or I heard my dad talk to me about that. So that's the number one thing that I'm really focusing a lot of attention on, discipling people to understand where the Bible came from, so that they're not shocked when they hear counter arguments.
Yeah, that's really good. If you're watching and you have a question, please by all means put it there in the comments, and we will ask it and try to answer it.
So before you came on, we were talking about Greg Koukl, and I love his book Tactics. And one of the things he mentioned in there in defending the faith and apologetics was being an ambassador. Like, it's just as important to have the right content as it is to present the content in a very Christ-like manner. So I was going to ask you, like, why is it important to not only have the arguments but present them in a Christ-like way?
Yeah, of course, in a social media age where there are people who their entire platform really depends on trying to kind of get people either really interested or really angry, so that they'll go and listen to a broader explanation on YouTube or something like that, that we're in a day where we really do scandalize the gospel by not being loving and caring. And so I'm always reminded of what one of my favorite philosophers, Pascal, said that Christians should seek to show that the Christian faith, he didn't use the term the gospel, but that Christianity is desirable first, and then second, to show that it's plausible, and then third, to show that it's true. And I think that should be our approach in general. I mean, I think there are times for a prophetic voice, but I think that more times than not, our posture needs to be charitable, winsome, as the Apostle Paul said, to make the most of our time with outsiders, to season our words with salt, to be careful with how we say things. And I think that Tim Keller, of course, models this so well for us. But Tim Keller, I once heard him say that we should talk about the gospel in such a way that our secular friends overhear our conversations and think, I wish that were true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that'll stick with me. That's pretty powerful, yeah.
Probably using that one Sunday.
Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun. We all steal everything.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Francis Schaeffer said that the final apologetic is the love that Christians have for one another, the way that we live in the world with one another and then with those who don't know Christ. And if you think about that in terms of our most lasting apologetic, it can be pretty convicting to think about often the way our tone is defensive and aggressive and condemnatory. And what we really need to do is just have transparency and charity. So,
well, that's is it First John as well? They'll know us by our love for one another.
That's right.
That might be the message. I didn't get it right on, but
but it's a good point when you're like lashing out and like it reveals something about your lack of trust in what you believe. If you have to be so antagonistic, right? Like, is that fair to say, to characterize that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way we share the gospel should match the nature and character of the gospel. And so obviously part of the gospel is that we've sinned against a holy God, but the whole of the message is we call it good news, right? And so how often do you give good news with a scowl on your face, screaming at the top of your lungs? Usually good news comes with a certain kind of posture, and I think that should be the case with sharing the Christian gospel as well.
Yeah, and I think so often people are more interested in trying to win a debate or to try to get their point rather than really being interested in seeing someone come to faith and someone truly hear the gospel and be able to understand it. And in this culture, the social media culture of where everyone is constantly trying to give their opinion and trump, why their opinion is better than everybody else's and all this kind of stuff, we really have to think about what is our goal. Are we just trying to win an argument, or are we trying to actually let people hear and respond to the gospel? So you have a new book coming out in October, The Bright Light and the Super Scary Darkness. So tell us about this book.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this one. This is one the first children's book I published was The Friend Who Forgives with the Good Book Company. And this was an idea I had way back then. And I thought, if I get the opportunity to publish a book in which I could do a bit of an overview of the Bible from the motif of darkness and light, and the light triumphing over the darkness. So beginning with, in the beginning, God said, let there be light, to kind of condense and paraphrase Genesis 1. And then to show that Jesus is the light of the world that defeats the darkness. So that's what the book is about. It really kind of gives an overview of the biblical story through this motif of darkness and light. It begins the kind of introduction, if you will, to that biblical story, is the connection point with kids is the fear that we have of darkness. And so I then move out of that into understanding that the Bible is really one big story about the light defeating the darkness. I'm really excited about that book. It comes out with B&H Kids in the middle of October. The cover to that book is going to be glow in the dark. So you could actually take the book.
Yes.
Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh, very cool. So I got to tell you a story real quick about The Friend Who Forgives. So you were here, you preached at our church, and we went out to City Barbecue.
And you've never invited me back, so I won't take that personally.
COVID. COVID.
It is suddenly colder in this room.
Man. Okay, all right.
Was there technical difficulties?
Yeah. Anyway, so we were at lunch eating barbecue, and you gave us a copy of The Friend Who Forgives. And afterwards we went home, and our daughter read it either on the road ride home or at home. She read the book. She was like probably 9 at the time, 9 or 10. And she's the typical like oldest child who never like admits she's wrong, is always, kind of like bossing everybody, the kids around, that kind of a thing. So she did something to her brother, and like 2 minutes later she came back and like gave this great apology. And we were like stunned. We're like, where did this come from? And she said, well, I just read in the book, The Friend Who Forgives. And so that had motivated her to actually change how she was acting, and realize that she needed to come and ask for forgiveness. So thank you. And we will have you back to speak again, just because you have helped my child learn how to forgive.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I love hearing stories. It's the first opportunity I had to write a children's book, that book. I had no idea what to expect. It's never been something I thought I would do. The opportunity just kind of came out of another book I was writing for adults, and my editor said, you should do a children's version of this. So it was about the life of Peter. But it's been so much fun to have kids come up to me and repeat back lines that I've written. And the one I get the most often is from The Friend Who Forgives. And kids will come up to me. I've got a line in the book that is, fish for breakfast? That's weird. And I will have kids say that to me. And the first time a kid did that to me, I just looked at them like they were an alien. I had no idea what they were talking about. I finally realized, they're quoting the book to me, which it's such a great, humbling thing to hear how the Lord's used that with kids. So thanks for sharing that.
You need to put that on like a t-shirt, like make some swag for that. That'd be a really cool, fun t-shirt to give to kids. I was curious, what is harder actually, writing the books for adults or the children's books? Like, I know they use two different parts of your brain. Like,
yeah, I will say this: I've only had one book I've written for adults that had to completely be rewritten, and that was the book Jesus or Nothing. And Dr. Russell Moore wrote the foreword to that, and he said, when the book is ready, I'll write the foreword. I wrote the whole thing, gave it to him, and he gave me an article by Anne Lamott called there's an expletive in the title, it's your cruddy first draft. And the point of the article is you have to throw your first draft away and start over. And so I did that. So I rewrote the entire book. And outside of that, the other books I've written, I've not had to do that with, except for the children's books. The children's books, I've had to basically go through multiple complete rewrites before I finally something sticks, and then we could start editing it.
okay.
And so, of course, the children's book's a lot shorter than a book for adults, but there's a whole lot more throw the whole thing away and start over. There's a whole lot more of that with the children's books than the others.
The other books.
Wow.
So never let Dr. Moore write your foreword. That's what I've learned from this. Well, sir, thank you so much. So we're going to move on to a segment we call Fast Five, where I ask you 5 completely unrelated questions about your ministry and work. Are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
Here we go. Question number 1.
Oh, boy.
If you put your 2 cents in and it's a penny for your thoughts, where does the extra penny go?
It goes in that little plastic cup on the, like a penny for someone else.
Yeah. See? This is why he was former dean of Boyce College and is now at Cedar University.
Yeah, you didn't even think about it, just instantly.
Spitfire, right?
I would have been, if you asked me that, I would have been like, disconnect, like.
Question number 2, sir, and I think you might have already alluded to this, but what's the most difficult question your kids have ever asked you?
I'm sure it has to do with some variation of the question, where do babies come from?
That's why they made the movie Storks. You just show that
Yeah,
movie. You're good.
I go Boss Baby.
That's right.
I like Boss Baby better. Question number 3. So we scoured and researched your Twitter feed and realized you have introduced your kids to Steve Urkel. So here's question number 3. Perfect Strangers, Family Matters, Full House. Who had the better theme song?
I'm going to go with The Wonder Years.
Oh, no.
No, you cannot dodge this question.
All right, Family Matters. Family Matters.
I don't remember Family Matters theme song.
I just don't remember the other ones well enough to have a.
Oh,
I remember Full House is the only one I really remember.
see, Perfect Strangers had that like standing tall thing and
I don't know what
balcony
Perfect
and-
Strangers is.
Go do research. Excellent.
How
All right.
old is that? Is that?
Oh, yeah, see, now I'm going to give away my age, so we will not go into that one. So question number 4, sir. As a huge Inklings fan, which Narnia character would your wife say you most embody?
Maybe Eustace Scrub. No, hopefully not. Hopefully Reap a Cheap.
See, we asked Dr. Moore, we gave him in his Fast Five question, he said, who would you rather have on staff, Samwise Gamgee or Reepicheep? And I believe he said...
He said he wanted Samwise on staff because he was Reepicheep.
He was Reepicheep.
Oh, okay.
So you're in good company, sir.
That's right.
And finally, question number 5, as a coffee aficionado, here's question 5. Decaf coffee, necessary evil or evidence of the fall?
Evidence of the fall.
Amen. Amen. Well played, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. You can check out all
Absolutely.
of Dan DeWitt's books. We'll post some links in the comments even of the morning show page. And looking forward to not only a new children's book coming out, but the other book you shared with us before for adults. And so let us know any
And when
updates
you're
on that.
coming back to preach at our church as
Yeah,
well.
it'll be to come preach on that
Hey.
book. That sounds really good.
Well, thanks so much. It was good hanging out with you guys. God bless.
All right.
Bye,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
It is unbelievable, like how well they answer these questions. Like, boom, boom, boom. Like, I try to legitimately throw some stumpy questions in there, and
Yeah, he was on them. He handled your Fast Five pretty well. Yeah, I don't know. I think you got to up your game, Rob,
I
because
gotta go back to the skunk.
I mean, I
part.
think since Jamie Dew, it's been
Oh, we're down.
like Jamie Dew, he conquered your questions,
Oh.
and then it's been.
That's the Lightning McQueen one. I really thought that was gonna stick more, but I got Noelle Yates on the, D in fridge, but not in refrigerator.
Oh yeah, is that the one where she just
Next.
dodged the question? She just looked over at Chad and was like, "Why did you email me?"
That's
Why did
actually
you-
my goal. Is to get how comfortable I make in the room.
We will never have any repeat guest on the morning show. No, but hopefully that was a helpful conversation, just kind of talking about and thinking about how do we be intentional about our kids and the questions they have. And I think one of the good points he made was realizing they probably have questions that we're not even realizing that they have them.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be trying to take those head on and try to answer those before they develop into something that begins to bring in doubt or
Right.
unsureness or something of that sense.
And I think it's okay as well to share with your kids the questions that you've had and how
Sure.
you've wrestled through them. Like part of that integrity and modeling for them where they're walking through. Craft an environment where they can open up and talk about those questions, that they're not embarrassed.
No, absolutely. I think we're probably thinking, okay, well, if they're having these questions I don't know about, how do I find out what their questions are? Besides, just straight up asking them. But I think also in those family devotions and that family worship time, reading the Bible together as a family provides a great avenue for kids to ask those questions and you to sort of say, hey, do you have any questions about this? Or sort of provides a good place for that. So, sometimes it's not just reading the Bible together. It's reading the Bible together provides an opportunity for discipleship, for answering questions, for dealing with some of those things head on.
So we're going to move on to our table talk for the day. So this is in line of kind of resourcing parents who are watching. So not only Dan DeWitt's book, but what are some other things that you can do to redeem the time with your children? And so we did some research on different things you can be listening to in the car, because there's all sorts of random statistics about how much time we spend in the car constantly traveling between different things. And so here is a list of some things. So what are some things you guys listen to in the car?
I try to listen to music really loud so it drowns out the kids in the back. That's not what you're talking about?
No.
If you have some ideas of things that you listen to, please post them in there. Yeah, so what do we listen to while driving? I mean, our kids actually do love music, and so they'll sing to music. So
My kids hate music.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting
I
because
try.
you're always playing some kind of random jazz music in your office.
Well, I mean, they'll listen to jazz. Actually, funny enough, Jonah, if I ever ask him, like, hey, Jonah, what do you want to listen to? And he goes, these boots are made for walking. That is, I'm not even kidding. That is the one song he requests all the time. I was trying to get him into Frank, and somehow he landed on Nancy, but...
You may need to call Dan for some one-on-one help. You may need more than an interview.
I got my counseling degree because my kids need it.
You're going to save money in the long run. It's cheaper to get the degree than it is to pay for the counseling for the kids. Yeah.
So one of the things that my kids always love and requesting is Adventures in Odyssey. This is a radio program from Focus on the Family, and they've been going for... my word, 25 years now.
Yeah, no, and it's a great program. The kids always love the stories. How do you find them? That's my question to you, because we'll be in the car, be like, oh, let's listen to Adventures in Odyssey, and you start Googling, and it's
it's hard to do. So
they don't make it very accessible.
I recommend, this is how we jumped into it. Our local library actually has a bunch of the packs of the CDs, and so you can check them out with wonderful interlibrary loan. You can get them from all over the state of Ohio, and so that's what we do. That's how we started them, and then we exhausted every single CD we could find. And so Focus on the Family actually has an Adventures in Odyssey app that you can stream to your car through the magic of Bluetooth.
I think it's 2020. I think we're past that being magic. Go ahead.
Magic. It's okay. There's gray in my hair, so I'm Gandalf. It's magic. You do have to pay their Elobus subscription. They'll give you 30-day trial, but it is well worth it. My kids are very picky though about where we left off when we turned the car
they don't
on.
want to miss the story.
So there's a very important piece of paper in our van where it actually writes down the timestamp where we left off, so we can catch back up. So I highly recommend that one. There's also, for some of you parents who use the Big Picture Storybook Bible, they have created a podcast that you can access. It's from Crossway. That's who publishes that. Where they've taken the entire Bible, and I think it's about 25 different episodes. They've broken the whole thing up, so you can be listening to that.
Is it reading it, or?
I haven't actually checked it out, to be honest. I love the story Bible, so I was really excited.
Listening to these boots are made for walk. Yeah.
Well, someday they will walk all over you.
All right.
If you want, yeah. Reagan's giving us the nosedive.
Yeah, it's over. Everybody's tuning out.
There's also if for some reason it's Adventures in Odyssey, you don't want to quite pay for that yet. There is from Reframe Media. There's a Kids Corner. They have radio episodes that they do as well. They're very similar to Adventures in Odyssey. That is free. You can access those through their web, also through their app as well. But another one that I really highly recommend is the Seeds Family Worship Project. This is a really cool CD program where you go on the website, buy the CD. What's cool about it is they actually give you 2 CDs when you buy them, because they give you one to give to another family to kind of pass along and multiply the ministry.
Could you just keep the second one because your kids are going to break the first one?
Probably.
Yeah,
yes.
That's probably what we would do.
That's an investment. Investment piece. So what's neat about Seeds Family Worship is they take scripture and they put it to song, to melody. So when you're hearing these songs, they're actually memorizing scripture as well. So a lot of times in Awano, when my kids were trying to memorize scripture, you could hear them singing the song. And obviously, it's a great mnemonic device. putting things to songs. So if you want to increase your kids' biblical vocabulary and their literacy of verses and memorization, I recommend Seed Family Worship.
Yeah, another great spot thing to do is pretty much all the major VBSs will produce music videos where you can download the songs. And I know Answers in Genesis, we've used the last couple of years, does that. And our kids, by the time we get to VBS, they know those songs by heart. Like, they've heard them, they love them, and singing them in the car.
Are they doing the dance motions too?
Most of the time, yes.
Do you participate?
I do
with the
not
dance?
participate. Dressing up and acting in the plays as far as I go. As far as I go. But yeah, I mean, the goal is just to be intentional. I think one of the things we have to recognize is the atmosphere. So our kids are, if they're just constantly being engaged in secular things, not necessarily bad, but just, it's a Nick Jr. show, it's a Disney Jr. show, they're listening to the songs, that aren't necessarily Christian. We want to also put some Christian things in there and around them, so they're listening to those things and they're getting that positive reinforcement throughout the week while they're in the car or while they're, at home cleaning their room. Our kids oftentimes listen to music while they're cleaning the room. That kind of stuff.
No, it's a good point because Adventures in Odyssey does a really incredible job of bringing in worldview, different issues, and so it creates an opportunity to have these conversations, different as the drama unfolds. So, be intentional about what you're doing. There is free time, and so redeem the time with your kids.
Yeah, that's good. Be intentional. Don't try to farm the job out to somebody else. As parents, try to take that job head on and look for those everyday opportunities to have a conversation, to talk about something, ask questions, give them a chance to ask questions. And it's all part of it. And we're certainly, as a church, wanting to see our children grow up through the nursery, the kids program, the youth program, and then, wherever God leads them to continue to be faithful disciples and followers of Christ. And we know it starts in the nursery. It starts right from day one. And so it's a task we have to take head on.
We've done a pretty decent show today, sir, huh?
Yeah, we're 42 minutes. Typically only 3 people make it this far.
Is that including us who are watching the show?
Yes. Actually, Reagan already got off.
Love you, Reagan. Thanks for making us look good. You and Pastor Chad. So we are going to preview the show for next week. So Matt Michelatos is coming on the show next week. I am so excited to ask him questions about his book and all the other books.
You have the book?
I do have
I need to read the book, I guess. Or else, at least, is there Cliff Notes?
No. But this is an incredible piece of fiction book. Really helped challenge some of the misconceptions I had and different things. It's a really poignant book at the end. He's written some other ones, Night of Living. I'm going to mess it up.
He currently works for Crew, right?
Campus
so, Crusaders? Yeah. That's cool.
Crusaders.
Is that what they're called? No.
Campus Crusade.
That was close.
That's close.
I was close.
We'll give you a half mark. It's like quoting the message. You're close enough. Well, make sure to tune in for the show. Also, we always love your comments and questions. Make sure to put those in the section underneath. We'd love to hear from you guys and answer any questions on air. If there's questions or topics that you would like us to answer or talk about, as well as any guests that you would like to have come in here, we would love to bring them in, so please put that in there.
Yeah, like and share. Like the Morning Show page on Facebook if you're following us there. Please share the feed. When you share, it lets more people see it and more people be able to engage on these topics. And the goal, while we laugh and crack jokes, the real goal is to provide some discipleship conversations and things that can continue to help us in our walk with Christ. Obviously, today focused on kids, but the more you share, the more people can be impacted. And we've had some great guests on, so they're bringing some wisdom beyond our foolishness.
Yes, much foolishness. But thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.